to the Why Not Today podcast, where we celebrate courage, determination, and the power of saying, Why not today? I'm your host, Leslie Kane, and in each episode, we dive into inspiring stories of individuals who have taken bold steps, faced their fears, and embraced the possibility of today. From entrepreneurs to artists, dreamers to doers, we explore the moments when they said, Enough waiting. Why not today? Join me as we uncover the heartwarming, the audacious, and the transformative, whether it's pursuing a lifelong passion, overcoming obstacles, or simply choosing joy. Our guests share their journeys to inspire us all. I started this podcast in honor of my dad, Patrick Kane, who often said, Why not today? And remember, you're just one decision away from changing your life. And today's episode, I thought it would be me. I'm going to start sharing more of my journey, my message, more about why not today with all of you. I have enjoyed this journey from starting this podcast, and I've learned so much. And I have done a couple speaking engagements and um, trainings, and I just thought it's a good opportunity to share a little bit about why not today. So I always say, why not today? Lead your life with courage. So who am I? I'm Leslie Kane. I started this podcast um, in March of 2022. And as it's evolved and as it's grown, I'm really finding I am somebody, and this is who I be, someone who cares about encouraging others to live their life, have fun, do what gives you joy, and live an authentic life. Like we need to live who we are. So I've been doing that through the podcast, and now I have a business. Why not today with Leslie Kane? And so my journey, and if I go way back to my little girl dream, my dad owned his own business, and I watched that. And I remember as a little girl, I didn't want to be a doctor, a lawyer, or a nurse, or a teacher. I really thought I wanted to open my own business, do my own business. No idea what that looked like. So like most kids my age, growing up in suburban Northern Virginia, I went to college, went to Virginia Tech, got my undergraduate, then started working. It's interesting, I worked for a copy center when I first got out of college. And my boss, who was a single mom, was very instrumental in, I think, guiding me on my journey. I also had another friend who was a woman in business, and I kind of watched both of them. Very active in the local chamber, which my dad started. But so I had that dream. I started working. I worked for a copy center, then I worked for a bank for a short amount of time, decided that was not where I wanted to be, and worked for a broadcasting consulting firm for 11 years. In that time, I got my master's degree. I get bored very quickly, so I out of college, I got my real estate license, and then decided that wasn't for me, and went to grad school and got my MBA in finance. So graduated in 1994. So it was one of those zero birthdays when I did it. But then that later that year, I was kind of bored again. Like, what's next? A good friend of mine started selling Mary Kay, and I thought that looks like fun, but I like the products. I thought I'd get a discount. Didn't have a real goal. So 30 years this fall, just crazy to think. I started Mary Kay business just for fun. I kind of was a brat, as I said, and I thought, I'm too good for this. I have a master's degree. This isn't a real career. That changed quickly. 5 years after I started my Mary Kay career, I was able to leave my corporate job. And I think that was one of my, as I call them, why not today moments, my first one. I remember being at work. I had two Mary Kay friends who were out shopping because they were Mary Kay full time, having fun. And they called me from like every aisle of the store. And I remember sitting at my desk crying and thinking, there is something better. So I decided, went to an event that fall, and I'm like, I'm going to quit my job. And I get pencil to paper, which I'm a planner, and I'm like, this is the time I'm going to quit my job. So I made the decision to quit my job. Had not replaced my income at all, but I thought there's a better life. So I made the leap 24 years ago this fall to leave corporate America. I thought, if it doesn't work, I'll just get another job. Well, 6 months later, God had another plan. My dad had a major stroke. And because I worked my own business, I had that flexibility. And so I could be there with him at the hospital and work my business and be there for my family. And so I've had a super successful 30-year career with Mary Kay. Yes, I've had 5 pink Cadillacs, and I think I'll pick up, I don't know if my 16th or 17th car. I have a team, and I've been helping women build businesses through Mary Kay for 30 years, and love being able to help women grow a business, find out who they really are, and have a life. One of my team members, she was able to quit her job and stay home with their son while he was growing up. She was a single mom and been able to be there for him because of her Mary Kay career. And I had something to do with that because I introduced her to the business. So um, that's been an amazing journey. Of course, this thing called COVID started in 2020, and I had to totally revamp the business. Another why not today moment. And I do remember, like, this is coming out later in September, but I am recording this on September 11th. And I distinctly remember another why not today moment after September 11th, 2001. Is that September 11th? We all know what that means. And I remember sitting there on the couch going, how am I ever going to sell Mary Kay? How do I sell lipstick and call somebody? And what I found out during that process is people just wanted to connect, and we're no different. That I just started getting on the phone and calling people and sharing stories. And then COVID happened, and I had to revamp a business again and moved to more virtual and found, you know what, I can work Mary Kay wherever. And then that's where the why not today came about. Is it was one of those, as I say, by why not today moments. I was going for a walk with a friend and said, do a podcast. And she's like, you should. No idea what I wanted to do. I remember we were walking, and I remember her saying, you should do it. Well, then a few months later, somebody, my dad, which is a logo of the business, and there's a whole thing about Flat Pad on the website. There's a podcast episode about that, I think. But somebody had my dad had an eye patch on handlebar mustache, and somebody that he knew had some surgery, had an eye patch on, and said, talked about my dad on a social media site. And he said, we both said, why not today? And that just stuck. Although I don't remember my dad specifically saying, why not today? He was always positive, and there was not a problem that couldn't be solved. And so I told my friend that, Bianca, and she's like, well, that's the name of your podcast. You just need to do it. So fast forward, we started. I'm one of these people that I have to have a deadline, and then I'll put it together. So March 5th, 2022, which happened to be the day my dad was born and the day he passed away. That date, March 5th, I started my first episode, and I recorded on a Friday and I posted on a Saturday. And I have never edited any episode purposely because I want this to give people permission to just do the things and say, why not today? So throughout, we've had 80, almost 90 episodes. And I've interviewed so many different people. In the beginning, it was anybody that had any courage story. It's kind of evolved a little bit and changed and grown. And somebody I had lunch with or coffee with earlier today said, I've gotten better. So good. That's good to hear. And it's just been a fun journey. So in every episode, I ask people what courage means to them. Some of the ones I really liked, love all of them, but my friend Julia Lofgren, which was a really cool why not today moment of meeting her. And she's one of my BFFs. That it was a random connection. Again, connections. She said, wanting something and having the passion and persistence to overcome your fears to get that thing done. My friend Laura Carney, who I saw her on CBS this morning, she wrote a book called My Father's List. I reached out and asked her if she would be on the podcast, and she's like, of course. And now I consider her a friend. She said, courage is choosing to listen to what your heart wants you to do instead of your head. And isn't it kind of ironic, the path? I met or saw Laura's CBS episode when I was in Asheville for Julie's birthday. Kind of interesting. And then Laura introduced me to a friend of hers, Mary Latham. And Mary said, courage is showing up in your own life and showing up in others people's lives when they need it, whether it's family or friends, or just noticing someone across the street that needs help getting across. And so there's just some of the courage definitions. So I always talk about we are all leaders, whether you have a team or not, or work for a company or not, we all are leaders, and we're leaders of our own self. Brian Tracy, um, in a book that I read recently called You're a Leader, Charlie Brown says, a leader is someone who takes action, achieves goals, and moves ahead. What this means is that you can be a leader without followers. The standard of leadership is your ability to get results. So, some why not today steps to courage. One, I always say, embrace the moment. The future is uncertain, but today is within our grasp. Waiting for the perfect moment can lead to missed opportunities. Why not today seize the present, and act with courage now? So don't wait. If you have that idea, something that keeps you up at night, or something somebody's been saying, oh my gosh, you'd be so good at that. You guys take that first step. Why not today? And two, use your courage as a catalyst. Courage is the spark that ignites change. It propels us beyond our comfort zones, urging us to take risks and make a difference. My episode last week with Sharon talked about she was not a person that took risk, but one day she had one of those why not today moments. And she's like, I'm going to quit my job and work with my husband. And so, you have to have that courage. And then when you decide and don't turn back. Um, there's a definition decide. It's basically cutting off all other options. So use that courage as your catalyst. And then with your courage and your why not today, build that trust within relationships. Courage comes from trust. And we have to trust God. We have to trust the people we're around, trust our own self. Check in with people, see what people think of your idea. But if it's something that you want to do, a why not today thing, then do it if you feel that passion. Build your community as you're building it and stay connected. I read a book recently called Who Not How. And, instead of figuring out how you're going to do it, figure out who's going to help you. And then part of courage is resilience amid adversity. Courage is in the absence of fear, is acting despite fear. So, how can you cultivate that resilience, bounce back from your setbacks, and lead with unwavering resolve? Like, just do it. Why not today? And then there's magic in bold decisions. Every significant achievement began with a bold decision. It was a pivotal moment, as I call my why not today moments. And we all have them. And think about some that you might have had. I'm always looking for guests for the podcast. If you're interested, you can check out the website at whynotdaypodcast.com, fill out a form, and let's hear your courage stories and those why not today moments. And start creating more why not today moments. When you have that idea or that thought or that thing that wakes you up at night, act on it. Say why not today. Um, and then obviously lead by example. Being courageous, encourage other people to do the same. And I really hope this podcast gives people courage to say me too, and gives them permission and hope to do the things that they're afraid of. Or if you're going through a hard time, maybe you've heard an episode or heard a story of somebody that has overcome it. And so I really hope that you take your courage and encourage other people. And as I said, give people permission to and hope and be able to say, why not today? So imagine today is your blank canvas. Anything is possible. So why not today? What can you do to leave a legacy, to make a difference, to change a life? You just never know. And I realized my dad left a huge legacy, obviously a legacy of 6 children. And he was instrumental in starting the Reston Chamber. He started a group home called Gabriel Homes, which he started after my sister was born with Down syndrome. And so he left a huge legacy. I just remember at his funeral, and I still run into people today that were there, and I had no idea they were there. It was like over 500 people standing room only. And I keep hearing stories of how many lives he's touched. And can you leave that legacy? And what are you doing to make a difference in other people's lives? And I think when we make a difference and leave that legacy, and we other focus, then things just fall into place. So we've had lots of courage stories on the podcast. And I hope you've listened to some. I did have an episode recently with my friend Tina Johnson, and I'm like, have you listened to any of the episodes? She's like, all of them. So I think she's one of the winners. Julia has listened to plenty of them also. I had coffee with a friend today. She's like, yeah, I've listened to them. So people are listening. So some of the stories, some of the behind the scenes, behind the story, I always say there's a story behind the story. So, and this was a why not today moment. I was in upstate New York, or near Buffalo, where I was born, in Webster, walking with my friend, visiting her one weekend. And my guest for the podcast backed out. She had COVID. So I'm like, what am I going to do? And my friend Trace is like, well, interview me. I'm like, what have you done courageous? Well, I didn't realize the story behind the story and the extent of it. She had some mouth surgery, and I knew she was in a bad place, and I knew she'd been on a lot of medication. Well, I didn't realize the extent of it. She was on so many drugs, painkillers. She was highly addicted. And when her husband went to pick up a prescription, the doctor or the pharmacist after actually gave her or gave him Narcan, which helps with people that are addicted or that overdose. And so she went through rehab and can't think of the name. I want to say cleanse, but that's not it. A detox. And it was very painful and very hard and took a long time. And it was hard on her and her family. She is on the other side and doing amazing. But her story was something, just a normal person, suburban housewife with two kids that is addicted to drugs. You just never know. And so her story touched so many lives, and her family didn't even know the extent of it. My friend Emma G is a musician, and I love her story. She is from New Zealand, and when we talked about her story, she had had a lot of surgeries as a child and had a lot of adversity. Moved to the United States, used to play. She's a musician, and she moved to DC and used to play on the street corners. And my naive assumption of somebody playing on the street corner, sorry to say this, is that maybe she was homeless or panhandling, because that's where you see people on the street. But no, she was a musician, and she knew she was in DC, which one of the most powerful cities in the world, and she wanted to make a difference in people's lives and start their day powerfully. So she played on the street corner. Um, People have been on the podcast or listened to the podcast and it made a change in their life. Another friend of mine, she was on an episode and we did the recording, and a week or so later, she's like, "Oh, I've got a Why Not Today story." After a recording came out, she had been interested in retiring from her current job to do something else. She said, "That gave me the courage to put a resignation in that day." Another person, a friend of my, a coworker of my sister's, one day I saw her, met her for the first time. She's like, "Oh, you're the Why Not Today person." I listened to that and it motivated me on my long commute, and it motivated her to look for another job and not have to commute. Um, I had another person, Dawn, who started the Reston Letter. And as I said, there's a story behind the story. And she was able to start a local newspaper. She's a high school teacher at the high school I went to, yay, Herndon. But she actually has epilepsy and had seizures, and she can't drive. And so, because she doesn't have to be an Uber driver for her kids, she's able to have the time to start this newspaper, which is making such a difference. Chris Howard is somebody else. Somebody said, "You got to meet Chris." Well, Chris, as I reached out to Chris, she lives maybe a mile from my house, which is crazy, but she was working for corporate America and decided she wanted to hike the Appalachian Trail, quit her job and hike the whole trail. Now, Chris had never camped in her life until the first day on the trail. She tells the story that she came on the trail with her pearl earrings. Her trail name was Phoenix Rising, and she spent 5 months on the trail, and it was not easy, but she did it. And then I think I mentioned Laura Carney and her courage quote, but she is somebody that I saw on CBS this morning, and she was talking about a book she wrote. Her dad was killed by a distracted driver, and she later found his bucket list and did the bucket list, wrote a book about it. Isn't that cool? And I reached out to her to be on the podcast, and she shared. And so her story is amazing. And she introduced me to her friend Melanie, and Melanie, um, her dad had HIV, AIDS in the 80s because of a drug transfusion. And he was a surgeon. And she was a young girl when they found out, and they had to keep it a secret. And he lived for a long time afterwards, but it was a secret they had to live with. So she wrote a book about that. And in the process of writing that book, wrote another one about writing hard stories. Of course, I've had one of my brothers and my mom on the episodes. My brother talked about, and it was, we grew up with the same dad, but it was different. We have different viewpoints of it. I was the first child, he was the fourth. So middle child versus first. But we talked about some stories with that. But then we also talked about he has accomplished the Ironman 2, 3 times. I had my mom on for the second anniversary, and she's like, "I don't have anything courageous to share." Well, she raised 6 kids, one with Down syndrome. She helped my dad, who's had a stroke and had health issues. I mean, she's got so many great courage stories. My friend Amber was on, and this is kind of a fun story that literally we were having ice cream one day, and on the way back, she loves to decorate. Like, she was here at my house one day and we were having a meeting. She's like, "Can I move things around?" I'm like, "You need to take your gifts and talents and make a business." Well, she didn't hear make a business specifically, But she went home, couldn't sleep that night, and wrote out a business plan, and she now has a new business. Beth shared a story of her daughter was really sick, and the doctors kept telling her it was probably something in her head, and she knew it wasn't. And just by reaching out and asking and not giving up and praying, they were able to figure it out using her mom's intuition. Laura Mora was another guest that had some health issues. And again, no doctor could figure it out. A chiropractor finally said, "Have you looked at what you're eating?" Well, once she changed her diet and got off or got onto an anti-inflammatory diet, um, it changed her life, and she started a business and now is doing coaching. I did an episode a couple months ago on the Why Not Today scavenger hunt about all the people that that God is putting in my path, and just following that lead of just being open to the people that I feel drawn to and hearing their stories, and you just never know. And so it's been such an amazing journey. Part of the thing I love is learning and then sharing. And so some of the resources I have are, and I'm going to start sharing more of this, books I've read that have made a difference about courage. Just a few is Brene Brown's Dare to Lead. That is such a great book. Daring Greatly by Brene Brown. The 5 Second Rule by Mel Robbins, and that's definitely a courage thing. Susan Jeffers wrote a book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. Another great one, Chop Wood and Carry Water. And then Who Moved the Cheese, which is an amazing book. And it's somebody that my dad actually went to, I think, high school with. So, what is Why Not Today? Why Not Today started as a podcast. And I always say your journey starts here and ends here, or doesn't end, but keeps changing. And so I decided in the end of 2023 to start an LLC. So it is Why Not Today with Leslie Kane. And under that umbrella, there is Why Not Today Courage Coaching. People are like, what is a courage coach? Well, I help people build businesses, start businesses, have the courage to do the things you're afraid of. I have a mastermind called Why Not Today? Unleash Your Inner Brave. I do courage courses. I just did a course for a bunch of coaches on systems. A good friend of mine said I'm a natural systematizer. So I'm going to use my gifts and talents to help other people to move forward. So whether it's a webinar, a course, a mastermind, I'm here to help you, or even one-on-one coaching. And then one of those Why Not Today moments for me in January, I couldn't sleep one night. Like, you know what? We're really missing connection and community and authentic, not networking. We network a different way now. Um, and so I woke up one night, middle of the night, got a pen and paper out, and came up with Why Not Today Connects. And that is a monthly luncheon that we hold, but also we've done some fun things. We've done a one word event, we've done a summer camp for adults. So just connecting with people, building those relationships. And then obviously the Why Not Today podcast that is out weekly now with people's courage stories. So Why Not Today Lead with Courage? I'm always looking for guests for the podcast. Follow me on social media. I'm all the places. There's a private Facebook group that is the Why Not Today community, where um, it's a safe place to share your courage. So that's kind of what's going on in Why Not Today. And I just thought it was a good opportunity to invite you guys to be courageous and do the things. Share what that Why Not Today moment is, or I'd love to hear your stories of your courage, or something that you just got in your heart and your keeps you up at night. Like, do it. Why not today? And I want to close with courage isn't reserved for extraordinary circumstances. It's a daily choice. So for some people, courage is just getting out of bed. So thanks for listening to my story today. And I hope it encouraged somebody else. Um, and remember, share this with people. Um, Follow it on wherever you listen to your podcast, like it, review it, check it out. Everything on the Why Not Today podcast.com website. We have Why Not Today swag. We have vinyls and cups and t-shirts. And I want to thank you guys for joining us on this, or joining me today on this inspiring journey. Remember, every day is an opportunity to take action, chase your dreams, and make a difference. So why not today? Until next time, stay motivated and keep making things happen. And remember, always ask yourself daily, maybe even hourly, why not today? Thanks for listening.